Chinook supplementation program. I work for the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, and I absolutely love my job. Not only because I get to tell people I work at a salmon hatchery, and my last name really is Salmon, but also because I find the work very challenging, very rewarding, and I work with a number of great people. I have a quick list here of people who have contributed to this freshwater captive brood program over the years. And we've also worked with other agencies, federal as well as tribal, and we've all worked together really well. It's been very nice to work on this program. I was hired in early 2008 at Kendall Creek Hatchery to oversee this captive broodstock component. And Kendall Creek Hatchery was chosen for this program for a few different reasons. The first and foremost is that we're located close to Skookum Creek Hatchery, where the juveniles are processed and then transferred over to our hatchery. It's about a half-an-hour drive, so that makes the transport really easy on these fish. I have a map here showing where Kendall Creek Hatchery is. It's located on the north fork of the Nooksack, and here's Skookum Creek Hatchery, which is located on the south fork of the Nooksack River. Another reason that Kendall Creek Hatchery was chosen is that we have really high-quality well water. We're very lucky in that we have a year-round supply of constant 47-degree Fahrenheit well water. That makes our job a lot easier. We have really good DOs, and the fish really love the water there. In addition, we have a lot of staff experience with Chinook rearing. We have a supplementation hatchery program on the North Fork spring Chinook population that's been in existence since the 1980s. It's a ton of experience there, and we've used that for our success in this captive broodstock program. In addition, we have the space for the large circular ponds that were eventually installed for this program. I have a picture here. You'll see the hatchery building in the upper left, and you can't really see it very well, but this is the Kendall Creek Hatchery facility, and there's a large open field here. This was taken back in 2005, so this is before our captive brood facilities were installed, but it just shows that we had the room here. You can see off in the distance on the left-hand side is the North Fork of the Nooksack River. So our captive broodstock facilities have really evolved over time. When I was hired in 2008, we had 2 aquariums for this program. We had big dreams, but we didn't have anywhere to put these fish at first. So it was a good challenge for us to figure out what the best environment was for these fish. I've got a picture of the first 2 aquariums over there on the side. Over the years, we've expanded quite a bit, and eventually in 2009 and 2010, there were a total of 10 circular ponds installed specifically for this program. We have 2 20-foot diameter ponds and 8 16-foot diameter ponds. This is where all the fish now live, and they really do enjoy the extra room that they have now. Along with these circular ponds, we have some intermediate rearing vessels, and we have a number of aquariums for these fish. Overall, there's over 9,000 cubic feet of rearing space dedicated just for this program. So the first portion that we do here at Kendall Creek Hatchery, sorry, not here, anyway, is the juvenile rearing. The fish are brought over from Skookum Creek Hatchery after they've been DNA tested and confirmed South Fork Chinook. And they're brought in and they're raised in this series of aquariums here. One of the important things for this program is separating the different brood years. The fish come in as sub-yearlings as well as yearlings. So we have to keep those fish separate. We also want to quarantine the new arrivals. So these fish are coming from the wild. We don't know what their disease status is. We don't know their history. So we want to keep a really close eye on them when they first arrive and make sure that they're doing well before we combine them with the other fish of the same age. We use these aquariums to introduce the salmon to hatchery feed. It's really important that they're eating well. It's very important for their health, of course, and they're used to a wild diet when they're out in the wild, and so it's very important that early on we get them to eat this hatchery food. You can see sort of on some of these fish, they have nice big bellies, and some of them are a little skinnier, so we really watch these fish, and the ones that aren't eating as well will hold back for a while and make sure that they're eating before we combine them with the other fish. So we monitor their growth in these aquariums. They've been very helpful for us. One of the main proponents of this program is transferring juveniles to the Manchester Research Facility. They represent the saltwater portion of our captive broodstock program. It's our job at Kendall Creek Hatchery to get these fish eating hatchery food and growing and big enough in order to survive the transition to saltwater. So we've, over the years, figured out that the best time to transfer fish is zeros go over in June and yearlings are transferred Part of the goal for sending both zeros and yearling age fish over is to mimic the life history in the river. These fish out in the wild go out to the sea, both as zeros and as yearlings. We've also found that the fish that do the best are the larger fish. So we have decided on a minimum fork length of 60 millimeters, and those fish are usually able to take that transition to saltwater fairly well. Prior to doing a large transfer to Manchester, we always test out our fish to make sure that they're able to survive this very different environment. So they're going from freshwater, of course, to saltwater. So we send a small group of 5 to 10 fish and slowly transition them to saltwater. If they survive and are doing well after a week, we send the larger group. We don't want to put these fish at risk if we don't have to. So our circular ponds were finally installed. We had a lack of space in the beginning, but we turned that challenge into sort of a benefit because it gave us time to do a great deal of research on other similar programs. We wanted to learn from their mistakes and learn about how they set up their ponds and what worked really well for them. So we found that the best setup was to have both top and bottom draw. We have a center standpipe, but the level of the pond is controlled by an outer sump. So the waste and the extra food goes down the bottom of the center of the pond, and then any debris on the top of the water column goes out the top flow. We went with a custom cover. You can't see it very well, but this aluminum frame is what PR Aqua, the company who makes these ponds, that's what they suggest for covers. But we went with just a flat black cover in the background there. It prevents the fish from jumping out, it provides them shade, and provides them security. We don't want any birds getting in there or otters or anything trying to eat these fish. We also went for 3 different types of alarms. We have alarms telling us if the flow of the ponds stop. We want to know if the water is too low or if it's too high. So we have 3 alarms on each one of our 10 ponds. We also learned from other hatcheries and other programs like this that it's really important to reduce the stress on these fish. These fish are in the hatchery environment for sometimes 6 and 7 years to reach maturity. So we want to avoid interacting with these fish as much as possible, keep down the stress, and keep handling to a minimum. So we don't go through and sample these fish for growth. Very often we just sort of leave them alone and hope that they stay healthy. Some of the routine procedures that we do at the hatchery are antibiotic treatment to control BKD, that's bacterial kidney disease. It's a big issue with Chinook raised in fresh water. It can become a huge problem. So our fish health pathologist has decided on a 3 times a year treatment for antibiotics to control BKD. We administer those by feed and then also through injections when appropriate. We also do pit tagging and DNA sampling. So the pit tagging is a way to identify each fish. They're injected with a small passive integrated transponder. It's only 12 millimeters, and it has a unique number so that we can identify that fish later on. We take an additional DNA sample at that time, pair that sample with the pit tag number along with a genetic code that the fish can be tracked for the rest of its life, so that when it's time for the fish to be spawned eventually, the geneticists in our lab can decide what pairings will make the best offspring and to maintain the genetic diversity of the program. In August, early August, we actually just did this last week, we ultrasound all of the fish to see who's maturing. That's the big goal of our program, is to raise these fish up long enough so they will mature, be ready to make eggs and milk so that we can give the next generation a head start. Basically, these fish out in the wild are having a really hard time. The South Fork of the Nooksack is a very warm river and has really low flows, so they're almost extinct. So that's why we're intervening to this great extent to try to help them to survive. So when we ultrasound the fish, we can tell if it's a male or a female, and also whether or not it's maturing, so that we can put them into discrete units based on males or females. I don't know how long it's been. Usually when we're done ultrasounding the fish and we find out that it's mature, we put it into a transport truck and it goes back to Skookum Creek Hatchery where it originated from, and they do the spawning there. This year we've had so many issues with warm temperatures, and at that hatchery they've had really low flows, so they're not able to take those fish as they normally would. So the group in charge of this program has decided to keep all of the fish at Kendall Creek Hatchery. So it's another challenge for us, and we're hoping that we have good success with our spawning this year. Here's just a quick summary of the number of fish for each brood year that we've had come through the door at Kendall Creek Hatchery. You can see there's been over 4,100 fish that we've reared there for at least some period of time, and the overall survival rate for each brood year. These two here have been the years that have had trouble with bacterial kidney disease, so the survival rates are a little bit lower there. And in conclusion, I would just like to thank everybody who has contributed to the success of this program thus far. It's been a truly cooperative effort, and we hope for continued success in the future. And I think I'm short, so